Paranormal Adventures proudly presents the Supernatural Roundtable, a journey into the shadows of the unknown, where myths and legends blur with reality. Join your hosts, Sean, Craig, and Richard, as they explore the unexplained, diving deep into the chilling mysteries of the supernatural. From the towering figure of Bigfoot lurking in the forests, to the eerie whispers of dogmen and the elusive presence of Mothman, we seek the truth behind the world's most elusive cryptids, ghostly apparitions, otherworldly encounters, and the unseen forces that linger in the darkness await. Together, we'll explore UFOs, government cover-ups, and the forgotten history buried beneath decades of secrecy. What are the origins of these mysteries? What are the consequences of their existence? And more importantly, what do they mean for us? Prepare yourself to venture beyond the veil of reality. Turn down the lights, listen closely, and step into the unknown, because the supernatural world is closer than you think. This is the Supernatural Roundtable.
Come join us as we enter the California mountains. We look for answers of what happened to 5 young men in these mountains. This is the mysterious case of the Yuba County Five. And if you can't tell, we have a special guest tonight.
Hey, I'm Gabe.
So this case concerns five young men named Bill Sterling, age 29, Jack Hewitt, age 24, Ted Weir, I probably butchered that last name, but he was 32, Jack Madruga,
I believe it's Madruga.
He was 30, and Gary Mathias, age 25. So I know y'all have been able to dive into some pretty good research since last week. We let Craig kind of kick things off on his sightings. Richard, if you want to kick us off on this, and we'll get going.
All right, the Yuba County Five. Let's see. There were 5 men that left home for a basketball game in 1978 and never made it back home. Their car was found abandoned, still had gas, windows down. The keys were missing, but no sign of a struggle. Months later, 4 of them were found in the mountains, starved, frozen, huddled in a ranger's trailer, just feet from food and heat that they never touched. The 5th man was never found. And it sets a pretty interesting parallel because you have, I believe 2 of them had military experience, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 of them, they were all mentally handicapped to an extent, but they were higher functioning mentally handicapped.
They were actually they were destined to go to, or they were planning on going to a basketball game the next day because they were all part of the Special Olympics, and they were all part of the Special Olympics basketball team.
Yeah, and I've really kind of dug in like the characters. The guy that was driving, he never let anyone drive his car ever. This is a man that he was also in the military. So the 2 people in the military, I believe that was Madruga and Mathias, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But Mathias, I believe, was the one that was never found.
Yeah.
And he was one of them that was in the military.
Yeah. I think both of them were the higher functioning of all of them.
Right. Yeah, Mathias, though, he was kind of a schizophrenia, He was given a psychiatric discharge.
Yeah.
And he was kind of He could go off the rocker real easy.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, I'm going to kind of set the scene up here because you got these 5 guys that are driving back. The driver of the car is he's known for all of them stuck to a routine all the time. They didn't like to get out of their routine. They've been on this road before. They knew the area. At least the driver definitely did, Madruga, I believe. And this for them to turn off on a dead end road or a road in the middle of nowhere was completely out of character for them. So they go up this road, and then I believe they got buried up a little bit or something, or got stuck. But they abandoned the car and and 4 of them at least go to a ranger's trailer, and that's where it all kind of went to heck, you know?
Yeah, and from my understanding, the car wasn't stuck bad enough that they couldn't have got it out. They could, if I'm thinking right, they could have easily, pushed it out of the.
Yeah, the police reported on that and said it was, all of them could have got together and pushed it out. It wasn't that stuck.
And the car still had plenty of gas in it, from what I was seeing.
Yeah.
They took the keys with them when they left.
Yeah, nothing was wrong with the car. But
They said the police actually hotwired the car. They didn't have the keys, but they actually hotwired it and it started to ride up.
yeah, so it's really weird the way the whole thing, lays out in front of us.
I kind of wonder.
Go ahead.
I kind of wonder if their mental disabilities kept them from realizing that they could do that. If it's just one of them things, it's like, well, it's stuck. We got to go somewhere else.
Well, it's possible, but the 2, Mathias and Madruga, were probably the highest functioning of the bunch, and they were also known as more the leaders of the group. The other 3 followed their lead all the time, and I would think, given the circumstances, that those 2, their names were Jack and Gary, that they would have saw, hey, we could dig this thing out. But my thing is, how did they end up on this road to begin with, and why?
They drove like an hour and a half in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
I recalled my timeline.
It just makes you wonder if they was forced to do it, or because it did say that there was a guy that heard some people hollering for help.
Yeah, there's a podcast I listen to. It's like a 7-episode podcast over the whole Yuba County Five and everything. It goes a lot deeper into detail about their backstories and everything. But there's a guy that was out driving and got stuck. He was in a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
And he got stuck and he was trying to push it out and ended up having a pretty severe heart attack, and was said he heard them. I believe he said he saw flashlights, but when he called out, they shut the flashlights off and went quiet.
Now, when I was looking into it, said he was laying down in the back of the bug trying to recover from that heart attack, and he said he may or may not have saw another vehicle going past around there, but he was unsure if he hallucinated it or not, because he was having all sorts of crazy thoughts at that time too.
True. His name was Joseph Shones. Yeah, Shones. His car was located 150 feet from where the Yuba Five's Mercury Montego was later found. he was in a Volkswagen Beetle checking snow levels for a family trip when he got struck, and then when he got stuck and then suffered it was a heart attack. And he apparently saw a group of people walking along the road, and he reported one was a woman holding a baby.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, but it could have also been he just had a heart attack too.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't know if he was hallucinating when he saw that, what kind of state he was in. Then he had a second sighting around 2 a.m. He saw flashlights again, tried to call out again, but received no response. And I did some digging into the, kind of character of, the five. And they were the type that if someone was in need of help, they would have helped them. So not only are they on a road that they wouldn't have, it's completely out of character for them to be on. They wouldn't, and like the driver of the car, Jack, he did not risk any harm coming to this car. This is his baby. Why would he drive it up this rough road in the middle of snow and all that in the middle of nowhere? And then why would they not help this guy that's stranded,
And they did say this car was in perfect working order. They said it didn't have any, they apparently took their time driving it up there because there was no dings on it. It didn't look like there was any damage done to, they said this road was real rough, and they said there was no damage to any of the suspension or anything like that, but they managed to get that up there. Whoever drove it up there carefully.
Mm-hmm. And once again, that would have more than likely been Jack that drove, because he didn't let anyone drive his car from all the reports I've ever read on it so far.
I don't know. It's a real strange story, because they claim that, they died from, 4 of them died from hypothermia, I think, or something like that. Three out of the 4, I think, died of hypothermia and stuff, and there was, like nothing to say that they was murdered. So it makes you really wonder.
Yeah, it's strange. Very strange. It draws parallels into the little bit in the missing 411 a little bit.
A little bit. And what happened to Gary Mathias,
Mathias?
Mathias. They couldn't even find him.
Mm-mm.
It just, I don't know. There's so many questions about this story.
There was the one, the hypothermia, and he didn't have any boots on.
Right.
It's just odd. Why would you be out there and take your boots on in that deep of snow and stuff?
It's very puzzling.
There was one that was still in the cabin that was appeared to be all tucked in and everything in a way that somebody would have had to have tucked him in there because he couldn't have got that way by himself.
Yeah, they said his head was wrapped.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the fate of him right here. It says Jack Madruga was found near his car, likely died of exposure. And Bill Sterling was also found near the car, died of hypothermia. Ted Weir, which I'm guessing that's how you say his name, was found dead inside a Forest Service trailer over 20 miles from the car. Had access to food and heat, did not use any of it. Jackie Hewitt, bones was found farther into the forest, likely scattered by animals. And then we know that Gary's remains, or what thereof, was never found at all. No sign of him.
Right.
I also saw that they found matches and stuff in the cabin. and no signs of any fire being lit at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, which didn't make no sense.
There was still food and stuff that was. There were some cans, from what I was seeing, that like we were talking about. There's two of them that were in the military, and there was cans of food that had been opened, and the way from the podcast I was listening to, the way that they were opened, you could tell that there was two different people that opened the cans just by the way that they were opened, and there was in what style done by the military, and then there were still other cans that were not open. They still had plenty of food that would have lasted them for quite a while.
You would think.
Yeah, and they said the food in that trailer, there was enough food to last. I can't remember how long they said, but they said it was plenty to last for the entire duration that they was out there.
I don't know how much of the food, but I heard that a good bit of it was locked up inside of a cabinet, which they could have gotten into if they needed to, but they didn't even try.
Yeah, it's like he laid down, that one laid down expecting to die, which ironically, reading up on it more, his facial hair had grown, meaning he was alive during this whole time and just sat there and starved to death.
Yeah, they said he was clean shaven before.
Yeah. Even with a disability, I would think that you're starving. I mean, this is just me kind of spitballing it, but you're starving, you're going to try to eat, you'd think.
Well, you'd think your will to survive would kick in.
I don't know. It gets stranger and stranger the more you go through it. And then we also noted that Gary had schizophrenia, but he had not had an episode in over 2 years. He was on his medicine at the time, showed no signs of having any kind of episode while he was at the game. So it just, I don't know. It seems unlikely that he would have a mental break right then and there, but that's just me, my ideas on it.
I'll tell you what, if they died from foul play, someone sure did a good job.
Yeah, I know.
There's a theory that the one guy, I went blank. Gary's the one that they never found, right?
Yeah.
That he was responsible for the deaths of the others and then took off and disappeared. But for somebody that has a mental disability, how hard it seems like it'd be really hard for him to disappear. And there was claims that there was again, going back to that, having listened to that podcast, that they talked about that there was a couple possible sightings of him later on, but nothing definitive. And there's no real signs of foul play either.
Right. So how could he be a suspect of nothing?
Yeah.
And with a mental disability like that, they're more likely to, in a situation like that, to just shut down completely than try and kill 4 other people.
You would think, for sure.
Yeah.
There's some theories out there that somebody hijacked them and forced them to go up there. But again, what did that accomplish getting them to that point and no further?
Well, I mean, what would they want? Because they didn't take the car.
Yeah.
And them being the way that they were, it ain't like that they was rich or anything. It just, I don't know. A lot of that just don't make no sense. You would think foul play, but then again, they died of natural causes. Froze to death, hypothermia, and starved to death.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's no real motive for foul play or evidence of it. There are just so many little odd things that add up.
Yeah.
They don't make sense.
Yeah, it's one of the stranger disappearances I've ever looked into. That's for sure. Because yeah, you do got some mental disability there for sure. But with Gary and Jack both being, from what I understand, both military, at least at one point in time, and Jack was said to have been just a little bit slower. That's about it. Not heavily impaired is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And Gary was,
you'd figure with two of them being in the military, they would have a little bit of knowledge of how to survive too.
well, you did mention that there was possible sightings, right? A local man claimed someone broke into his cabin in the mountains during the time the five were missing. Canned food was opened and eaten, and some items moved, and there were signs that someone had slept there briefly. It was near where Ted Weir was found, raising the possibility that Gary had survived longer and was trying to stay alive. If true, Gary may have been the one feeding Ted in the trailer, since Ted survived for weeks without using the stove for food. Someone could have been helping him live.
Well, it did say something about, I think it was Gary had friends somewhere close in close town. I can't remember the name of the town that was close to, but it was in the police report. Said that they might have been going there to visit them and just made a wrong turn, but I don't know.
It's possible, but also looking at the facts that they were going to a Special Olympic basketball game, the next day, right?
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were all looking forward to this, and this would have been completely out of the routine for them to do. So I don't know how plausible that is, because, a person that likes their routine is usually not going to deviate from that unless they absolutely have to.
Well, with their type of disabilities, there's, them kind of people with them kind of disabilities, they're pretty prone to stay on schedule on doing everything a certain way.
At one point, before all this had happened and everything, I believe it was Gary was up in Oregon, and he didn't have a vehicle at the time, and he was in Oregon, and I don't remember why he was there, but he ended up walking 500 miles back to his parents' home. Claimed that he never caught a ride or anything. He walked 500 miles back to his parents' home.
It's a hell of a trip.
I don't know. Makes you wonder. I mean, could he have somehow survived and just forgot everything? You reckon?
It's possible, but what do you mean, like turning feral kind of thing?
Not really turning feral, but he had the schizophrenia and everything, and he was not, he had often experienced psychotic episodes and stuff, in the past. Maybe it just happened to hit him and he lost all sense of who he was, where he was.
See, my dad had issues where he told me, he's like, man, I would forget who I was for
Yeah, kind of like that.
You know, he'd forget who he was for months and realize, oh yeah, I've got to go back. You know, then remember who he was then.
And with two of them being in the military at that time, there's no telling what they might have been going through. There might have been some sort of experiments or something.
Possible.
And you know, with the PTSD and stuff like that, and there's things that would just, you know, he might not have been showing evidence of schizophrenia, but something minor. He could be driving down the road and the car backfires and it triggers him, and he goes off the wall. So, you know, no telling what could have happened.
Right.
Not saying that he did it or anything, just, you know, with something like that, you know, something simple could have happened and a rock hit the side of the car and set him off, thinking it was gunfire or something.
I remember when I, lived out on the farm, there was a neighbor on down the road, and he had been in Vietnam and everything, and sometimes you go visit him and you never knew who he was going to be. One time I went to visit him, and he was like, he thought he was the president of the United States. And, you know, he'd tell us all kinds of things, you know, like, hey, do y'all need anything down there, you know, at the hog farm? He said, I'll send you about 100 panels. You can repair all your fences and everything, you know, and he was all time saying something. But you know how the jets and stuff would fly over, you know, doing military maneuvers? Well, we always had something coming through there. And boy, when they come through, he was like a different person. He'd hit the floor and get down like he was holding a rifle, you know. So, you know, you never can tell with someone that was a vet or anything. Or, you know, I'm not sure how long he was in the army or what, but
from my understanding, I don't think he was either of them were ever in combat though. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Even if you're outside of combat, they drill that training into you so hard that you never really go back to who you were before.
Yeah, basic training back then was a lot different than it is today.
I've got a buddy that he's in prison now, and he was in the Air Force. The last place he was stationed was over there in Oklahoma City. So, he was, he got sent back to the States because he started having some mental issues. And he never got discharged. He was stationed on the base over there, and him and his girlfriend had a child together, and he got.
We lost him again.
Froze again.
You froze.
Am I good now?
Yeah.
You're good.
He thought his girlfriend was going to keep the kid away from him, and he attempted to have her murdered 3 different times.
Wow.
And now he's in prison. So, you know, there's something that, you know, he was overseas, and he got into something that caused him to have some mental issues.
Yeah. Well, it's also possible that maybe, you know, if that theory is true, that like he was trying to take care of that one guy, and that guy ended up dying on him, maybe he kind of went crazy then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you
The
never
whole
know.
thing's just the whole thing's nuts, and the more you move into it, the deeper it seems to go. And I think it's going to be one of those things that remains unexplained because until we find a body of him and we can really start piecing together what happened and why, we're never really going to know, which is why it's going to remain one of these mysteries.
And no telling, he could be alive today, I guess, couldn't he?
Possibly.
He was what, 25 years old back then?
Yeah,
He wasn't that old.
that was in 78.
He'd be near my age. Well, no, he'd be older. He'd be about 10, 15 years older than me.
And it could have been maybe he was the first one to die, and it just set all the others off, freak them out enough that they couldn't do anything.
Could be. But they do think that Jack Madruga, that he possibly died first. And the going theory is that he died first, and then it just cascaded downward from there. But we really don't know.
Yeah. And I wonder, it makes me wonder, the one died there close to or there's two that died close to the car. Yeah, I'm wondering if, they had made it to the cabin and one went back to get the other one that was left. They were trying to get each other to that cabin, but the cabin was so far away.
It was what, 20 miles?
Yeah.
The Ranger trailer, yeah, it's 20 miles. I mean, they were on.
I think they said snow was pretty deep too.
They were ill-equipped to be in the snow. And they, as I said before, they were creatures of habit. Creatures of habit generally don't deviate from their normal routines.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's either something drove them to do that, or I just can't think of anything, honestly, why they would go off on this rough road, because Jack did not like, as I said, did not like his car being touched, did not like anyone driving his car, nothing like that.
When I told y'all about this case, I said it's a wild one. It's crazy.
It really is.
Because there's no definite. I hate unsolved cases, but this is my favorite unsolved case because the deeper you dig into it, the deeper it goes, and it's like there's so many rabbit holes you could go down to, and there's all sorts of possible scenarios, but none of them really fit.
Mm-hmm. Well, probably.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's very complex case, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, okay. The other theory is someone chasing them. I mean, if someone's chasing me, my go-to is to get to civilization as fast as possible, not turn on a Forest Service road in the middle of nowhere. Get to where the people are.
But then there's the mental disability. Would that be something that they would have thought about?
True, but with two of them in the Army, you'd think that'd be.
Or because they were in the Army, they could have been like, we can shoot down this road and we can lose them.
It's possible.
So, I don't know. It's crazy.
If someone was chasing them, they think they might not want to lead them back to their houses,
Maybe, but I don't know. It's so weird that I just...
Well, the fact that there is no foul play, there's no indication of foul play, that's what gets me.
Well, if you look at a lot of like the missing 411, a lot of them, there's no foul play there. It's just they disappear under mysterious circumstances and we can't explain it and we don't know why. Some of the cases, like the guy that traded out boots or didn't have his boots or whatever, That's an ongoing thing in the missing 411.
Yeah.
Clothes will be stacked and folded, and boots taken off, and the stuff essential for you to survive is you're discarding, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's the I just drew a blank. Starts with the page something undressing where you start having hypothermia and you feel like you're hotter than you actually are. You're actually freezing, but you feel like you're burning up.
That's very true.
Then you start undressing, which is causing you to get even colder and killing you faster. I want to say paradoxical undressing, but that don't sound right.
Yeah, I mean, the cold definitely probably did play a factor, and I mean, obviously, some of them died of hypothermia, but there's also the fact I think hypothermia can cause you to hallucinate too. That's something that I don't know if anyone really takes into account with this story. The fact that if you're hypothermic, you're discarding clothes or whatever, and then maybe you're going a little bit paranoid and hallucinating. Maybe that you think someone's chasing you or whatever. But either way, at least 2 of them survived long enough to stave off the effects of hypothermia for a while. I mean, we know at least 2 died pretty quickly, and 3 managed to at least make it to that trailer.
Yeah.
That's 20 miles in the snow.
That's a rough journey right there.
I wonder. It makes me wonder how long it took them to walk 20 miles
in the snow over rough terrain.
Yeah.
That could have been a few days, hours. I don't know the terrain. I just know it's in the Sierra Nevadas, and that's rough. Sierra Nevadas is really untamed, depending on what part you're in.
That's where the Donner Party died, or a lot of them died. So
Donner Pass, yeah.
Yeah, if you think about the Donner Party, that's where they're at in the same mountain range.
Yeah, of
In
course.
wintertime.
Yeah. Of course, Sierra Nevadas are also pretty damn big too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think this is going to be one of those that we're never going to have a definitive answer for. There's a lot of them out there that are like that.
So this is saying Jack Hewitt body was discovered June 7th of 78. Ted Weir was found June 4th of 78. Jack Madruga was found June 5th of 78. And Bill Sterling was June 5th of 78. So, that there's a couple of them that were found the same day, then the others were the day before and a couple days after. Then, of course, Gary was never found. I want to say the one that was just bone that they found just the bones of, his father actually found his bones.
Yeah, I believe you found the rib cage, wasn't it?
I think so.
He found it and basically goes, this is him. Knew that he found his son.
It'd be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt.
I doubt this case will ever have an answer to it, though.
No.
It's just too far in the past now, and they can't find nothing new.
And I think the only way we would be able to actually have the answers to it is if Gary was ever found alive. And he was able to remember.
Yeah, and you think about it too. These guys, they played. They played basketball themselves. On a Special Olympic team. Am I right?
Yeah.
So they wasn't in bad shape. As far as physically.
No.
I don't know. It just throws a bunch of question marks out in there.
Well, also, there's also, even if he's not found alive, just finding his bones after this far into the future, bones don't last long in the wild. Unless it's just absolutely perfect conditions. That's the only way we find fossils nowadays is because the right conditions were met, to fossilize them. Generally,
we talk about how quickly bones and stuff, remains disappear, but then there's times, growing up on the farm, there's a spot where there's a couple cows that had died on our farm, and I remember growing up we go around the edge of the field and past where they had died, and for years, all that was there was the skulls of like 2 or 3 cows was right there, and I remember them skulls being there for years. So things disappeared quickly, but then again, sometimes they don't.
I guess the skull being thicker would probably remain. Maybe some femurs and stuff would possibly.
Well, I think it's going to depend on your area too, weather conditions, the area that you're at, and everything. Because certain types of forests, they have a lot of different types of animals that would feed off that. And that was a pretty cold area. So as far as the bones being found, it should be fairly easy to find their bones.
Well, with all that snow, that's going to be a lot of water, which could erode those bones pretty fast too.
Yeah.
Possibly, but it also preserved the body for a while. But then again, you start getting into places like that, you got cougars and coyotes. And I'm not sure if they have wolves there yet or not. Not sure.
I think they are there.
Worth looking into, but either way.
And that area ought to have grizzly, don't it? Grizzly or big browns.
But look how long those bodies survived that were up in the Dyatlov Pass, where they had the bodies that were found months later. But then again, they were found under the snow and stuff, or they had been covered by the snow.
Yeah,
that would preserve them. I mean, the cold temperatures there in Russia,
yeah.
So I don't know. Go ahead.
Sorry. The only way I can really see us ever getting an answer to this is if he turns out to be alive, because a lot of those people, when they get on up there, they'll confess to murders and stuff before they die. It happens pretty often.
It's true, but if he did have, say, a psychotic break and he just forgot everything, his chances we'll never know.
Yeah, but you can't really call it a murder either.
Yeah.
This is one of them things that it's part of the reason I want to go to heaven, so I can sit down and go, okay, tell me about the Yuba County Five. What happened? I want the details.
Right.
No doubt.
There's so many cases out there that don't have answers. I'm like, I need to know. I'm nosy.
That's what makes us curious. We just need to know. It's human nature, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, it's yeah. I don't know. Unless just something groundbreaking happens and they find skull fragments, something they can test for DNA. I don't know. I think we'll just have to hang this up as it's going to remain unexplained and
Unsolved.
always wonder why they turned off on that road. Because the minute they turned off on that road, that was a ticking time bomb right there.
Yeah.
So
One thing I didn't mention earlier, we were talking about the guy that had the heart attack and everything. Some of the investigators had talked to some of his family, and they said that he was prone to tall tales. So him actually seeing somebody might have been him just making it up, trying to be the center of attention.
Not necessarily a credible witness.
According to the authorities, his story changed 2 or 3 times about what he saw.
I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely not a reliable source, or you should count, but definitely good you brought that up.
So
Yeah, that's a good point.
So whether or not he did see him, his credibility already has shade on it due to his ability to spin yarns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Sean, we're getting a little before we got 9 minutes left. But
Yeah.
9 minutes left.
But I know I'm glad we talked about this, and I've been itching to get into it a bit, and I figured y'all would find it as interesting as I did because of how uncertain every part of it is. But I know we've been trying to do a kind of a preview to our next episode, and since I feel like we've jumped over Richard a few times now. Me and Craig doing our own thing over here, going, "Hey, we're talking about this." I think you've got a pretty good one for our next episode, there, Richard. If you want to talk about it.
no, I don't mind getting skipped over. I mean, I get to hear some interesting stuff, so I'm cool with it either way. And it's kind of funny. We're called the Supernatural Roundtable, but we've not talked about ghosts at all this entire time. So I think I found one that a lot of people here in the States would probably never have heard of, but people over in England would be very familiar with it. He is called the Black Monk of Pontefract, said to be one of the most violent poltergeists in England, and is also said to have killed a young girl. Known for numerous violent encounters with people, often seen as a tall, hooded figure in a black robe. We'll start digging into that on the next episode. It's a long one, and it's dark, but a lot of ghost stories are, especially dealing with poltergeists or even into the demonic.
I don't know if y'all watch the show Ghost Adventures. Maybe we should send old Zach Baggins over there to threaten that ghost, see what happens. I'm not a big fan of his, so
I've watched them occasionally. Most of them, I feel like they're just playing it up for ratings. They have to. Yeah. But yeah, that's my pick for our next episode. So I'm hoping everyone likes it.
Sounds good to me. So I'll throw out. I'm not ever going to let Crystal try to give out our email address again. But if anybody has any title or any subjects that they want to throw out our way, or comments, or anything they want to say is good, bad, indifferent, you can send it to paranormaladventures2@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook page at Sean and Chris. Or now I'm messing stuff up.
Yeah.
It's Paranormal Adventures with Sean and Crystal. Then I let y'all got the Arkish Watchers, which people can join up and talk to y'all too and everything. So then we got Craig over there. He don't do technology, so he can just be the caveman for the rest of his life.
Pretty much, yes.
So I think that's about all I've got.
And don't forget to like and share and subscribe to us. We could use all the help.
Oh, and listen to Paranormal Adventures on Podbean as well. I think we're also on iHeartRadio and something else. I don't remember what else.
Spotify, I believe.
Spotify, that's it. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, we're glad to have you, Gabe.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, we'll have to do this another night when he's over.
Yeah, for sure. I think the next episode's going to be. Sounds like it's going to be a little bit wild, so we'll see.
Definitely sounds like it.
Thank you for joining